Hey, what's going on, Mission Hills Church? Welcome back to the Continuing the Conversation feed here on our Messages channel. You're back with your host, Colin, and
I'm Craig.
And we have a in-between jet-lagged kind of, Craig is here. Craig is jet-lagged.
I'm
Craig
here.
is in-between.
I'm definitely here.
He's locked in. I am not worried about it. So you had previously talked about an app you had downloaded, and it was going to hopefully help you a little bit with, kind of the adjustment, but it doesn't seem to be the case this time.
Yeah, I don't know if I haven't followed it carefully enough or if I overwhelmed it. You can have a good system, but if you overwhelm the system, it's going to break. And so, like I said in the weekend message, I've been over the Atlantic 4 times in the last 3 weeks, literally 40 plus hours in economy class seating. And I don't know if the app is just not working or if it was just too much in too short a time period. So, but yeah, I'm definitely, I did wake up at 5:20 this morning, which was major victory.
Huge adjustment.
So that was much better than 3:04, which has been something weird, like 3:04 every morning. What is it about 04? I don't know. I don't get that.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. Maybe there's some spiritual significance that I'm unaware of. I don't know.
It's calling you into prayer at the wee hours in the morning.
I'm not much of a prayer. I'm praying to go back to sleep.
Yes,
that is all I'm praying for at 3:04 in the morning.
It probably comes from just a point in my life too, where like instances like that, I'm like, I'm not putting coherent thoughts together. I don't know if the Lord wants to hear me in that time or not, where he's like, I am, all knowing, but I'm having a hard time putting these things together that you're praying to me right now. So I totally get that. But, I wanted to mention that you're heading out to see one of our partners in India. I've been over to help out this partner in India before. I've taken a short-term trip over there, and it's one of my favorite trips that I've ever done internationally. And you get to go over, and you're going to be working with pastors. So this is kind of your last big stretch, kind of cool trip here in the 2025, you were saying.
Yeah, this should be the last one for 2025. Should be a great opportunity, though. Working with Christian leaders in a part of the world where being a Christian at all is difficult, a lot of persecution. In fact, the theme really is to go and to provide encouragement for people in ministry in the midst of a season of significant persecution. So we can't say a lot of details about where and who and when and those kinds of things because there are ears out there.
Yes.
But I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a rich time of hopefully being encouraging to some people that are doing work in a place where it's really needed, but it's hard to do the work there.
Mm-hmm. This will be our church product placement, so if you will. So if you go over to our website, missionhills.org/short-term-trips/STT, if you're looking at it, we'll also put the link in our bio. You can see all of the trips that we have coming up in 2026. If you want to carefully consider praying about how the Lord could be using you on maybe a short-term trip coming up here, because I know we have a lot of need for that coming up. So it's really cool that you're heading out on that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So how has message planning been going for you along with all of this travel? I mean, everyone's like, oh, he's on the plane for 10 hours. Lots of time to, write the message and review it. But like, you forget that you've got 200,000 other things to do. We launched a campus over this last weekend here. We're starting to think about Christmas coming up. We have, all sorts of other things kicking around your head here. So how's that been going?
Yeah, I actually find it really hard to work on messages on the plane. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. I mean, I do it sometimes because I have to, but I find it more difficult. I think everything's going okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be overly Pollyanna-ish everything, but I'm working on Christmas messages right now, which is kind of fun. We're not quite in November yet, and yet I'm too deep into the Christmas series, which is going to be fun. We're going to do, by the way, kind of a deep dive on Matthew's birth account, kind of a expository series, 2 weekends just on the genealogy. That'll be kind of fun. We've touched on that in the past, but get some different angles that I feel like the Lord showed me. And then we're going to walk through the whole birth account in Matthew. So kind of an expository series. It'll be nice. And those are coming together. Starting to think about. I have the schedule for next year planned out, but haven't started writing messages. Kelly was in my office the other day, going, "Do you have any idea what your content for that first series is going to be?" And I'm like, "I've got I can tell you what the passage is going to be. What I'm going to say about the passage. Yeah, check back with me in a couple weeks."
That was a cool behind the scenes moment for me when I first started working at a church. I mean, you just don't know how far out these things are kind of planned. I mean, we do a retreat to kind of like creatively start thinking about Christmas over the summer, early fall. And then we had our big communications team meeting yesterday where we kind of set up a old school Gantt chart and we look at all the mediums and the dates and we look at how we're getting everything out. So we just did that yesterday. So it's kind of a full steam ahead Christmas here. So it's an interesting
fast.
Machine.
I mean, Home Depot and Hobby Lobby and Michael's have all got the Christmas stuff out, have for a while.
I know.
So it is coming for sure.
It's heartbreaking to me because I'm a big Thanksgiving guy. Yeah. So I feel like oftentimes we go kind kind of like 4th of July into an early Halloween, right into Christmas, my favorite holiday gets overlooked.
I'm a big fan of Thanksgiving too.
Oh, the food. Well, it's because in our souls we got a little Midwest in us, so I feel like the Thanksgiving food just kind of like speaks to us.
The Thanksgiving meal is my favorite meal.
Yes,
hands down. Not all the like turkey, dressing, mashed potatoes, good gravy. Green bean casserole, if you need some color, that's fine. You know,
I like how that's the color.
I don't really care about the cranberry stuff, but yeah, it's fine.
So my mom is originally from the West Coast, and she makes an oyster stuffing, which I get once a year. And my mom and I are the only two people that are ever at the gathering that ever eat it, and it is my favorite thing in the entire world.
Yeah?
Some smoked oysters in it. Oh man,
I'm not a fan of the oyster dressing. Yeah.
It's different because they're smoked. Is at least what I try and tell people as I introduce them to it, and it never works. Well, this weekend was awesome. You've talked about this on the podcast before, and I'm really glad that you kind of re-hit this topic here. Usually we talk about being generous with our time, talent, treasure, but you've talked before how kind of two of those are a little bit of the same thing here. So
talent and treasure are very similar. Yeah.
And so you kind of introduced, this is kind of our first heavy push congregationally into kind of what the 4 T's are here. Yeah. You want to hit that for us real quick as we kind of look at the message?
It was, as I was thinking through just kind of practically, okay, what does it look like to embrace the mission, right? That's what we're talking about. And looking for some fairly clear and useful grid so that people can ask the question, am I doing this? What does this look like? We're supposed to give God all of us, right? And I realized that I think being open-handed, which is to say living generously, with those 4 things is a really good grid for thinking through, am I actually embracing the mission? And so the four T's were our time. So obviously we have a portion of our time that we use to serve others. Then there's the treasure, which is the typical finances. We use a portion of our finances to advance the gospel. Then there's the one that we added a few years ago so that I wasn't double hitting that, the talent. Because in the ancient world, a talent was a unit of money. So when we say talent, like we're kind of like, well, we mean like your skills, but you use your skills by using time. So you don't really need to talk about that. And biblically, talent is not a skill, right? So we switched over that one to touch. I'd been using that word. I got that from a friend of mine a few years ago, and it's the generosity of kindness, of patience, of grace, of that pursuing peace that becomes a foundation for being able to proclaim the peace that's possible through Jesus. And then the 4th one that I felt like the Lord added to me, and it's one of those that I was thinking about it, and I had the thought, and I was like, oh, that felt like a Holy Spirit thing, right? The 4th one was territory. That we have these spheres of influence God has given us, whether it's a big territory, small territory, but we all have. I asked the question, who here knows somebody? And it was very slow, but eventually every hand was like, yeah, I guess I know somebody, right? Okay, that's your territory. That's the people God's put in your life, and being generous with that, understanding that territory as a place that is actually a place for us to embrace mission and to do those things that God calls us to do, to invite people to find and follow Jesus. When we think about our territory that way, we are embracing mission. Yeah.
Which is really cool because you had talked about kind of the history of a traveling preacher kind of in the passage as well, which is a highlighted territory piece of that as well. Because he said, once you get there, don't leave, because you had kind of highlighted that.
Ooh, I hadn't made that connection.
Come
That's
on
good.
now.
Yeah.
Because eventually you had mentioned that they would somebody finally reluctantly would be like, hey, I got kind of a clause so you come stand. And then eventually as the notoriety games, they're able to kind of move on to a nicer place. So I think even in this passage here, it's really cool that all of these pieces were, kind of subtly highlighted there.
Yeah.
So
that's really good, Colin. I hadn't really thought about that, but it just hearing you say it right now makes me think of, I was in college, and there was a guy named Mike who had come to Jesus, and the campus minister as part of it kind of basically asked me to disciple him. And as I was talking to him, he was a fraternity leader, and he was a leader in the business school, and because he was new to Jesus, he was kind of asking me these questions, but I need to drop the fraternity, right? I need to get out of the business school, and I just remember even at the time, not really certainly not a vocational minister, but my immediate thought was, man, don't you dare.
Yeah.
That's your mission field. You have an opportunity to be the hands and feet of Jesus, and to really demonstrate the reality, the transformative power of the gospel in a place I'm never going to go. I can't walk into a fraternity house and have a hearing. There's no way. But you're already there, so don't leave that. right? Don't leave that territory God's already planted you in when like he's given it to you. So I love you said that. I hadn't thought about it, but now I wish I could go back and do the message again. Throw that one in.
See, that's why everyone's going to come in and listen to this here. I had a question for you revolving that. I know burnout, we talk about it all the time, whether it's involved in vocational ministry or, kind of secular work. I feel like oftentimes, especially being in vocational ministry, it's really easy to be like, okay, I'm spending my time here. I'm going to serve my time here. Those two things kind of go hand in hand. And then thinking about secular work, I'm like, I got the kids to drop off at school, got to, put in my 9 to 5, and then we take them to soccer practice. And then I got to, serve on top of that, or I'm being called to serve on top of that. How have you found to balance kind of these 4 T's as opposed to not pursuing burnout?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. I think it's a really important question. We live in an era where burnout's pretty high. And some of that, I think, is the culture that we live in and the expectations that are on us. And some of it is we've probably lost some resiliency along the way, and we've lost some capacity for things that I look at some of my grandparents' age generation or my parents' age generation. I'm like, man, they were a little bit tougher than I am, So I think there has been some of that. And I think there's some cultural reasons. I don't think it's people just lazy. I think cultural things have happened. I think mass media, social media has drained some of our capacity. So you asked the question about balance, and I don't actually think balance is a very healthy idea. And not negative, I'm not demeaning you and what you're saying there.
No.
I think that's the standard language we use. And the problem with balance is, balance is really, it's about stasis. It's about getting kind of, everything that its right position, and then, hoping that after you've got it all stacked together, nothing bumps it, nothing gets added to it, nothing gets taken away from it, because if it does, probably the balance is gonna collapse, and you got to rebalance it. And I just don't see it biblically. If you think about, like, we talk about work-life balance, right? Well, I mean, the Bible says 6 days you should labor and 1 day you shall rest. Well, that's not balance. I mean, balance would be 3.5 days of labor, 3.5 days of rest. So it's not about giving everything equal weight or equal position. It's about figuring out what's appropriate. And I think that's seasonal. And so you're asking the question, especially when you throw in like Reese, you got a kid, right, who takes a fair amount of your time. I think when you have small children, the rhythm of what it looks like to live generously in these different areas looks a little bit different. Okay, there's opportunities that come because of the season, but there's also opportunities that you're not going to keep trying to take because of the season. So, for instance, does Reese play any sports yet?
We just wrapped up his first little stint into soccer here.
So you had new territory.
Yes, we did.
Right? You're building relationships with people, with parents, coaches, and then those kinds of things that, like, I don't have that. I don't have kids playing sports, right? So you have an opportunity to go, okay, I'm going to live generously in the sense that when I'm at the game, right, I'm actually going to do more than just watch the game and take notes to correct his batting or whatever, right? I'm actually going to go, I'm going to meet people and I'm going to have conversations with them. And that's starting to live generously. You're thinking about it through that lens of this is a mission field. And so that's an opportunity you have there. When you don't have kids at home, you're not doing that. And so there's different kinds of opportunities. I've written some books, but when my kids were at home and we came to Mission Hills, I made the decision I'm not going to write books for a while because it's not appropriate at the season. I've still got kids at home. The job at Mission Hills is big. And so I said, this ministry, which I think is part of embracing the mission that God's given me, but it looks different right now. It does not look like teaching at the seminary. It does not look like writing books right now. Now my kids are out of the house now, and I'm writing. I did a book last year. I've got another book I'm working on. Great. It's a seasonal thing. But that's what I think is rhythm. It's about, like, what's appropriate to the season. And I believe that when we have a mindset that says I'm called to embrace the mission no matter what the season, then we just, it's a question of looking, it's awareness. Like, I'm looking at, okay, what's unique to this season and that I can engage in. And it doesn't have to be a burnout thing, because it's not like you're like, well, I'm going to go to extra ball games so that I can live on mission with my, my sports friends. No, actually, it's just that's where I am. I'm just going to see it through that lens. And it's just, it's an opportunity that I have because of the season I'm in. And I think when we live that way, it's not necessarily about adding things on all the time. It's just about going, what's appropriate and what's the Lord leading me to in this moment. And I really do believe that where God guides, he provides, that where he's guiding us into embracing mission in an area, he's going to provide both the margin that we need and the strength we need, as long as we're not ignoring his principles around it. There's a lot there.
No, I like that too. And you had talked about intentionally kind of not adding things onto. So I think in a hustle focused culture, that is also a very important thing to focus on, where it's not like I've taken on 8 things right now and they're all getting equal attention and equal effort. So I really like how you talked about rhythm over balance there. That seems very good.
Well, balance is exhausting. Yeah. Because you're trying to maintain it. Rhythm is very energizing. Right. I mean, when you have rhythm and you feel it, like your head starts to bop, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a good thing. I think thinking rhythm puts energy in. I think thinking balance usually it sucks it out.
And I think another piece that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's something we talked about back when we were reading a Malcolm Gladwell book where it's being intentional with our efficiencies too, because all the time we're figuring out faster ways to do things. Mm. We're like, all right, I got, whatever morning routine with Reese in the morning, it used to take me 45 minutes or something like that as, I'm getting him ready for the day. But now as he's a little bit older, he can do some stuff for himself. I've found 15 minutes in my day. Yeah. And rather than filling that with, kind of superfluous other stuff, kind of finding these little pieces throughout the day where it's like, I have made this more efficient. I'm going to be intentional with that time that I've gotten back.
That's really powerful, Colin. I think you're right. I haven't really thought about this, but now that you're saying it, like the thoughts are coalescing.
I think it's a Gladwell thing we talked about, but I could very much be wrong.
Well, I've forgotten it then. But this idea that we're always looking to do everything faster, and that doesn't actually end up creating more margin in our lives, because that's the key, right? It's margin. I mean, if we haven't talked about this in a while, it's worth saying. Margin is the gap between what is available to you and what's asked of you. And as long as there's a gap between that what's being asked of you does not run right up against what's available to you, you have margin. And it's like shocks in a car. You can handle some bumps in the road. But I think we go, well, if I go faster, then I'll have more margin. But what happens is we end up filling it in. Like I've started doing something kind of weird for me in my workshop. I've started discovering the joy of old-fashioned like hand planes.
Okay.
Like, so usually when you're looking to sand something down, like I was going faster, like I need a better sander, and I sold some pieces. Like I can put that money back into better equipment. I've got a better sanding machine and it goes faster. But I have discovered like the power of this old-fashioned big heavy iron plane. It's much slower. The end result is so much better. Like you can plane something smoother than you can sand it. It's crazy.
Wow.
But it takes longer. But there's something deeply satisfying about it. And I'm finding myself when I'm taking the time and I'm planing an edge or something with this thing, going, I actually think something helpful is happening in my soul. I'm slowing down. And I'd love to say I'm being super spiritual and I'm praying or I'm thinking about the message. I do think the Holy Spirit's doing a lot of that in the background, especially on the message piece of it. But I'm finding it, I really enjoy it. And I think it's because it's refreshing in a way that I wasn't getting when I was trying to get everything done faster. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's really good. I think it leads me really well into the other part I want to talk about. You talked about, correct me on the pronunciation, the muktuk?
The muktuk.
Muktuk. I crossed over my consonants there. Muktuk. You had talked about how one of the worst things you've ever had.
Easily.
I think it's an awesome example, though, of you pushing personal comfort for pursuit of mission. How have you, in the thinking about rhythms here, how have you found kind of that go throughout your life where you're like, okay, being called to stretch a little bit, with personal boundaries here and, kind of stretch myself a little bit so I can pursue the mission while also keeping how to kind of keep yourself healthy. Yeah. Too, because I think those two things do play a little bit of tension with each other, and the Lord does like to stretch us and grow us, which I think is important. But
I don't know that it's really all that incredibly complicated. I don't have any big secret sauce on it. I mean, you're a workout guy, right? I mean, when you push the boundaries on a workout, what do you do the next day?
Well, I'll hopefully not get injured, but rest.
But you rest a little bit, right? You can't constantly be pushing. And that's the rhythm thing. It's like, okay, now what's appropriate is actually to push my boundaries, and then it's to pull back. So, I mean, I'll give you a practical example. I'm always looking to grow. I mean, I'm pretty passionate about growing as a leader. I want to be able to add value to a team of world-class leaders. And for that to happen, I have to keep growing as a leader so that I've got something to add. And so, I'm stepping into new places and doing new things and surrounding myself with people who push me and press me and make me uncomfortable with things and challenge me on things. And that's really good. But there is the tension, we'll call it. We're trying to avoid the balance where we're talking about the tension, right? We got to get the right note out of this thing. I actually was looking at a Christian leadership forum called C12, fantastic program. And I was kind of investigating the possibility of joining one of those cohorts and being part of it. And I went and I spent a whole day. It was a Thursday, and I spent a whole day with a group of Christian business leaders, and we went through this program. It was really cool. Absolutely loved it. And then I just had a conversation this morning with the guy that kind of leads it, and he said, so do you want to jump in? And I said, yeah, I don't. And the reason is pretty simple. I loved it. I loved the way it worked out, but it's an all day, once a month, and I can make room for that in my schedule. But I said the bigger thing is I'm an introvert, and that after that entire day nonstop with just people at a table talking, I was just wiped. And I was like, I don't think that's healthy for me right now. And so I'm looking to stretch, but there's also those places that I go, yeah, but not necessarily here. And I am going to maintain. We can talk about it as boundaries. That's a lot of the common language. I would say no. It's margin management. And so, yeah, when I'm in those places where I'm being stretched, I'm going to be stretched when I'm on this next mission trip. India is an assault on the senses in every sense of the word. It's intense.
Study in extremes.
It is a study in extremes. I'm going to be pretty wiped out. And so, like my assistant and I have looked at the schedule for my midweek stuff, even after I get back, going, okay, let's put some more. She calls them strategic pauses. She's really good at that.
That's perfect.
But it's very intentional. We're going to push and stretch, and then there needs to be that opportunity. It's a recovery period is really what it is. Yeah. And I think that happens in seasons like that, whether we're talking about, I'm gone for a week and then, it's a week of get some recovery in, but also even just throughout the day, if I eat muktuk, after that, I'm probably going to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I just need a little bit of comfort
not
food.
Not chasing it with Vegemite?
No, I'm not chasing it with Vegemite.
I think that's perfect. And I think you in your leadership have helped out a lot with that here on staff. I come from working secular world, so I didn't have any of this before I came in, but we are encouraged to take soul care days here, which don't count towards our PTO, but it is a time where we are supposed to go out and do what recharges us. Yep. And that's not a time to do the laundry, not a time to do your errands. It's a time to go out and spend time with the Lord, which I just was a really cool new concept. And then once a year, we'll do a staff retreat, which I'm lucky enough to be on the planning committee for that. And we intentionally call it Refresh. Year in and year out, it is the same title, but refreshment looks different each year, but we intentionally kind of survey, take the pulse of the staff year in and year out and kind of figure out what refreshment looks like that year. So I think those are really cool pieces that have been built into the staff culture here at the church, where kind of that rest on the back end of being stretched is intentionally pursued.
Yeah. So what refreshes you? What have you figured out?
It's an interesting question. I was just talking to my boss here at the church about that. The last time I felt really in tune with the Lord and refreshed is Emily. It's going to sound silly, but Emily and I went to a Rockies game. Gosh, I know they're terrible. Everybody has feelings about the Rockies, but I grew up playing baseball, played all the way through college. So it is a kind of a pseudo sanctuary for me out on the baseball field. Yeah. And we were watching a game and it started to kind of lightly rain on us a little bit. And the Rockies won the game. So I think that helped my mood a little bit, but it was me and Emily, my wife, sitting there. And I was just thinking back to a time where I was like, gosh, I've almost spent half my life with this person. And I'm in a place that has brought me a lot of joy. So it was just really cool in this kind of reflection moment. So that was the last kind of big eye opening. And it was, of course, this incredible sunset happening behind the scoreboard. So it helped out.
I really like that. I think you're saying something that's really helpful for our audience. And that is that the things that refresh you are probably things that refresh you. Mm-hmm. That would not be refreshing for me. I mean, hanging out with my wife would be refreshing, but at a ball game, I'm not feeling that one, right? Mm-hmm. And so the standard, this refreshes or this, you got to do this. A lot of times what happens is people tell you that's what you need to do because that's what works for them.
Right.
And there's a certain level of experimentation that I think is required to figure out when I did this, I've put something back in the tank, right? And I can't remember if we've talked about this on this podcast before, but there's a difference between rest and restoration.
Yes.
Rest is 1/3 of restoration, right? The oration is the important part. That's where you put something back in the tank, because if the car runs out of gas, it'll rest. But it's not going anywhere till you put something else in the tank. And I think experimenting and figuring out what actually puts something back in the tank, that's an intentional practice that I think is really powerful. You know, what do you do? I mean, if you just think about the Sabbath, what exactly did they do? I mean, they weren't working, but did they just lay there? I don't think so, you know? And I think that, you know, you have to sort of figure out what do I do on my Sabbath that actually does put something back in the tank. And so I love that you found that, but it's a great example because it's not going to be the same for me. And so whatever encourages you, I'm going to speak to the audience, it's probably not what is going to encourage or refresh me, but what refreshes me is not going to be I like reading philosophy. That's not refreshing for a lot of people.
I also want to say, Emily, I don't think Emily came away the same refreshment that I did from that either.
Yeah. But you got to experiment.
Yes.
Right? And you have to figure, and when you start finding those things, then you go, okay, well, what does it look like to lean into those in a way that's appropriate to my season in life? You know, I'm in a season in life without kids at home that I can do some pretty nice things. Like I have a beach in Oregon that I go walk on, you know, a couple times a year. I couldn't do that when I had kids at home. It wasn't appropriate, but it is now. But when I did have kids at home, I was starting to figure out, okay, what are those smaller moments where I can get that little kind of bump back into the tank? Yeah. So yeah, experiment with it.
And it's cool. And your desire for what refreshment looks like also probably changes too. Because when you had kids at home, you probably didn't want to go to the beach.
No.
You wanted to be home and, you know, watch them grow up and spend time with them.
Absolutely.
So I think being tuned into that throughout your season of life too is also really important.
For sure. Yep.
Well, Craig, can you give us a little 30,000 foot overview of what we can expect this weekend as we continue Unshakable here?
Yeah. This week, we're going to talk about the fire. We've been talking about the storms, and we're going to shift the metaphor just a little bit and talk about, like, what does it look like to kind of move through the fire. We're actually going to look at Daniel 3, which is it's the famous story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and getting thrown into the fiery furnace. It's interesting how God brings things together. I was working on a message for the people I'm going to be talking to in India because they're going through a lot of persecution. I was like, this is a really powerful story about some principles around that. But then I realized it's actually really good just for every one of us. It's not just for ministers or pastors. It's like, how do I deal with the fire and how do I move my way through it? And one of the things I'll say is faith doesn't necessarily keep you out of the fire, but it will get you through it.
Yes. We're never promised that it'll be easy and safe.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about Daniel 3. It's going to be fun.
That's awesome, man. Can't wait. As always, if you guys have any questions, email us at info@missionhills.org. We'd love to answer those. I think we have a little 2-week gap coming up here in between sermon series. I think coming up here, so we can always do a mailbag questionnaire coming up. And also, please go over and check out our YouTube channel. We have all sorts of really great playlists on there if you guys are looking at diving a little bit deeper into any spiritual questions that you have. We have some other podcasts on there that we would love for you guys to check out, and some really cool music videos too if you guys are looking for a little midweek worship.
Very cool worship stuff.
Yeah. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Craig.
God bless.
This podcast is hosted by Colin McFarland along with Craig Smith. We are mixed, edited, and produced by Zach Anderson. Our creative director is Colin McFarland. Maddie Brower is our SEO and copy specialist. The Continuing the Conversation feed is part of the Mission Hills Podcast Network in Littleton, Colorado, and available for download wherever you get your audio and video podcasts. Thanks for listening.